Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Today's presentation is going to be about nested if functions. We'll begin by quickly going over the regular if function. If you are completely new to the if function, go ahead and watch my classmate's video on that. After that, I will explain to you the general idea of the nested if function and its syntax. And in the end, we will finish off with an illustrative example. The if function is a useful tool that returns different outputs given an input.
Generally speaking, if functions have three components. First, a logical test. An equation either returning true or false. Those can be simple statements, as we can see right here, but can also include cell references or longer mathematical formulas. Depending on the result of the logical test, the if function will either return a value or text if we use parentheses after the first comma, if the test turns out to be true, and the value at text after the second comma, if the test turns out to be false. As you can see in the example on the top, the function returns the text after the second comma as the logical test is wrong. And contrary, it returns the text after the first comma on the second example because the logical test is true. This is a nice tool, but it will only return one of two values, in this example green and blue, or here true and false.
Now, this is where the nested if function comes into play. It offers the opportunity to generate more outcomes. The general idea is to insert a function after the second comma. This way, you can keep adding more outcomes. A thing to remember is that you will always need n-1 if functions to code your idea, with n being the number of different outputs you want to generate.
The counting skills from an ape. He was able to learn the numbers 1 and 2, but got stuck after. To simulate what the ape is going to say, we need 3 outputs. The regular if function isn't sufficient. To create a nested if function, we start off as usual with a regular logical test. In this case, we check whether the amount of bananas is equal to 1 by comparing the number to the cell in which we determine the number of bananas. If so, the ape will say 1 banana. If not so, however, there are still 2 different outcomes which the ape might be able to say. In order to conclude them both, we insert another regular if function after the second comma that checks whether there are 2 bananas. As you have figured out by now, if that should be the case, the function will return the text after the first comma, 2 bananas. If not, we move to the third option, which we created with help of our nested if function. Always make sure to test your code by inserting different values. Especially make sure to evaluate the boundary cases of your result when the if function gets more complex. So this is easy, so there aren't too many boundary cases, but we still have to check a few things to make sure that the if function works properly.
Next, we want to apply our knowledge by building a weather advisor that generates advice based on different temperatures.
Nested if functions can be written in many different ways and still work in the same way and still deliver the same results. However, writing them complicatedly will make it confusing to adjust or to read for someone else. I choose to begin with the highest value. In our case, that's 175 degrees. And it's too hot for humans, so the function should return jokingly, "Are you on the sun?" ? If the value is 175 or lower, however, we enter the next if loop. We continue the process and add as many sections as we please until we reach the second last output. We then write our last if function. We check whether the value is over 40 but lower or equal to 65. Even though the logical test only covers the number 40, if the number were over 65, it would have been executed by the previous if functions already. Now, if the number should be in that interval, the function will return the text after the first comma. You might need a scarf. Finally, we won't have to create another if function, because we can be certain that the value is smaller or equal to 40, and it's freezing outside is applicable. Once again, always make sure to test all your results. So if we plug in 90, it'll return pack your swimsuits, the weather is nice for a swim. Or we can try a whole bunch of different degrees, and it'll work all the time, as we can see right here. Maybe put something that is way too hot, and it will return to us, are you on the sun?
To sum it up, the nested if function is a powerful tool to return different results with a range of inputs. We can produce practically as many inputs as we want, but as we saw in the example, it can get messy quickly, so make sure you keep your work tidy. Nested if function isn't restricted to programming a weather advisor, but is often used to set up grading schemes, bonus payments, and many more.